Welcome back to another episode of Say Yes to Travel, where I've been getting to talk to travel industry professionals in all different verticals and seeing a little bit more about what they're doing, what they're working on. And I'm excited because today's guest has a bit of a different background than some of the other guests that we've had. So I've got on today Jon Wolfe, who is the CEO of House Advantage. But more than that, he's also the CEO of eTouch Menu, Axiom Cyber Solutions, and has his fingers in at least 7 different companies. So without further ado, I definitely want to go ahead and bring him on. Jon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Sarah. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to it all week.
Yeah, well, I have to say, okay, doing a little bit of my research, preparing to have a chat with you, your background is really impressive because obviously there's a whole tech aspect, hospitality, but then also you are very active within nonprofits as well too. And I love that because it's a very well-rounded sort of background. But to bring our listeners up to speed, could you share just a little bit about what your background is and who you are and what you've been working on?
You know what? My background's pretty diverse. I really have done a lot of different things, but I really kind of grew up in the gaming industry, building different resorts and hotels and restaurants and all of that as part of our destination resorts. And I was lucky to be able to become a CIO of a very large company at 27.
Wow.
So, you're completely immersed in it for several years at that point, right? And fortunately, I worked for a company that was very much about the perspective of the customer, right? That's where we work back from in everything that we did, how they perceive things, how they were treated, how to make their experiences really great. And you couldn't ask for a better school to grow up in, right? To get ready for, the chapter when you start working for yourself and doing,
Totally.
all the things that really make you happy, right? So that's really where my background is. Right now I've got a collection of companies. I've got House Advantage, which does loyalty for a lot of different companies and industries, but primarily focused on the gaming industry. That's where we've done well with products like M Life for MGM Resorts, and we're now doing. We've done Boyd Gaming. We've got office over in Asia. I mean, so we've done pretty well creating loyalty programs and technology for the gaming industry and other related items. We also bought a company called eTouch Menu, which does a lot of, now it looks like the most obvious thing out there, right? Thanks to the pandemic, where you've got all this electronic ordering and contactless payment. And now I look like I'm brilliant, but that's not really why we bought it. We did that as an extension of our House Advantage technology because we thought that the data around people buying things and how they bought things and how they made decisions while these things were in flight was a very important aspect of what we did in loyalty and understanding consumer habits. So that's why we made the eTouch Menu play. I also have a cybersecurity company, and you go, well, how are those related? Well, listen, if our whole lives are immersed in technology, right? Well, isn't cybersecurity the most effective counterbet you can make? You can't have more immersion in technology without all of these cybersecurity issues. And when you've got people on the other side of the globe that's how they go to work every day. I mean, they sit down at a desk and their job is to just absolutely plunder American companies and take them for all they've got and that kind of stuff. And the pandemic has been a lightning rod for that kind of activity. And again, you kind of start to see those lifestyle elements that I talk about coming into play about technology, data, all that lifestyle technology is really where it's at. Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned, because you mentioned this right before we started. I mean, you're talking about lifestyle technology, but this like lifestyle entrepreneurship, and that you're touching on all of these, which, I mean, to me, it makes sense. But I think all too often, and again, we were just talking about this just prior to this, is that it makes such a difference when you're building businesses around things that you're passionate about and things that you do, So I love that that's how you've kind of built everything.
Yeah, and on the surface, they don't look related at all. And then when you talk about a little bit, they start to line up like they're kind of obvious relationships. So
Yeah.
I kind of like that. But no, listen, lifestyle, I tend to invest and build where I live and spend all my time. And I'm a lifestyle consumer first and foremost. There are things I like to buy. There are ways I like to spend my time, and all of these items kind of complement that. So I approach a lot of my work as a consumer first. Right. Yeah. And I think that helps make our companies a lot more effective and be disruptive. Right.
Totally, totally. And, by the way, I wanted to kind of come back to what you were saying before, but this element of data, it's like, I mean, you were touching on it, but I mean, that understanding the decisions that consumers make, I mean, all of that feeds into each other. So when you do a deeper dive, the companies do all make sense as far as, how they're related.
Yeah. And initially on the outset, they don't look related but it's, there's nothing more important that, I mean, you hear what a commodity data is all on its own now, right?
100%.
And then understanding consumer habits and then understanding the laws around protection of data and then understanding the technology that protects data. I mean, they're all very complementary. So we're kind of excited to be in all aspects of that. We think we've got an interesting combination, even though it didn't happen really as a matter of science. Sometimes it was just kind of, we saw an opportunity at the time and we took it, and we're kind of excited about the way things are going.
Yeah, well, it's also a more organic approach to it as well, too. So, which I think always kind of like, in the long run, works out in your favor a bit more. So wanted to hear from you, just because of your involvement in these different businesses, which are different aspects of the industry. Certainly last year was a challenge. It's arguably still a challenge for, the travel and hospitality industry. Did any of your companies focus on doing things differently throughout the year? And were there any wins from that? Because I'm sure they had to make different pivots in different ways.
So I think there's been nothing but wins from that. Yeah. And awesome. I know that everybody doesn't feel the same way. I think you have, when you have a crisis like that happen, and we had different customers. We had those that shut down, and then there were those that called us and said, how are we going to make the best use of this time so that when things do finally emerge, we're out in front, or we've taken a quantum leap forward? And what are those things we need to be thinking about, right? And so we took a lot of the path that our customers did, which is, how are we going to use this time to really advance our products? What are the things we need to leave behind? What do we need to be ready to offer the minute that things start to turn back on and those lights start blinking and slot machines are on casino floors and all of that? And so we ended up with a lot of wins in every one of these businesses. When you talk about like Axiom Cyber, I mean, we were featured. We had developed just out of happenstance a new home unit called Hack Trap to protect all, because again, lifestyle technology, right? I did my place in LA and I had the opportunity to redo it. I did it with all the latest technology. So even my washer and dryer are on the internet. Don't get me going.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Love it.
But when you do that, you start going, look at all these invitations we're giving to people to come into our homes and take advantage of us, right? From the thermostat to my vento hood to my refrigerator and everything else in between.
Everything.
And so we developed this consumer unit called Hack Trap. And then all of a sudden, all of this hits with the pandemic. We're featured on Fox Business and we're inundated. Right. And unfortunately, all my kids are assembling units to get shipped out and that kind of stuff. So I think, from a cybersecurity standpoint, you had a lot of people, the work from home, the school from home, and all of that kind of stuff created a convergence on a lot of our technology that we have been working on. And cybersecurity continues to be such a huge thing. Just when you think it's getting better, you find out it's getting worse with ransomware and all that kind of stuff, both personally and with companies, right?
Yeah.
So that's one way. I think also with eTouch Menu, I mean, digital payments, we had been working on that, and people were resistant to that change.
They totally were.
They were resistant, and they didn't want to use the technology. Nope. And we had the tablets all over the airports and that kind of stuff. We had the barcodes, and people were slow to adopt until you have to adopt.
Yeah.
And these things are not going away. That territory is not going to be given back. And so, we think that's a progression of where industries and certain consumers were slow to adopt technology. They fought tooth and nail all the way there, right? And all of a sudden it gave way, and it's not coming back. I hand somebody a $20 bill when I go to pick up coffee in the morning, and they look at me like I'm crazy.
They're like,
right?
What is that? Cash?
Yeah, and they don't understand what an ATM is. And and so those are things that aren't coming back, but I'm not sure that that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that, but I do think we had some accelerated adoption of some technology that we fortunately have been working on, and we had some resistance. And now we've got a lot of people embracing that, accelerating that. And now it's more, they can't get resources back to work. So now the technology is now providing an alternative to a severely lacking workforce. So now we're filling a lot of orders around self-ordering technologies, self-payment technologies, and that kind of stuff for our customers. And so those are things that kind of became big wins, and because people are having to adjust to the new normal, right?
Yeah.
And so our technology was ready. We needed to make some tweaks and that kind of stuff and adjustments, but we're moving very, very quickly in that space.
Well, it's so interesting because obviously I'm, knowing the industry so well intimately, and seeing how there were certain pieces that were in play beforehand, but this resistance, and now it's like, okay, because of external circumstances, as you said, it's like certain changes were accelerated, and so I'm really curious and excited to kind of see just how things will continue, moving ahead. I actually wanted to talk to you a bit about also like the loyalty programs, because there's also been like a lot of talk about that as of late, just as people are shifting their mindset and maybe, understanding maybe the value of loyalty programs and all that. So do you see them changing in the future, or do you see it being more valuable than ever? Like, what's your kind of viewpoint on that, or what are you seeing?
They've never been more valuable.
Yeah.
Right. But what defines a loyalty program is changing dynamically. It's really becoming a lot more robust. But, because of the role of technology now versus 18 months ago, right? Technology is now starting to define the whole experience.
Yeah.
Right. And people always talk about that millennials are some of the most least loyal customers ever. And that's not the truth. It's what they determine as the experience, right? And the thing is, if you've got a high-end steakhouse, there's only so much better you can make a steak.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody's selling the same bottle of wine. The only way that you can make it better is the way you wrap it up in service and technology and delivery and how well you know your customer, because those are going to be the things that matter the most. And it's incredibly competitive out there, right? So you better be doing those things really, really well. That's how people are being evaluated, as the entire business experience rather than just the meal, right? It's not up to just the kitchen. Now the kitchen's got to get it right, but you got to get all those other things right, because that makes up the entire experience. So, loyalty programs are now foundational, rather where before I think they've been kind of optional, right? You better know your customer. You better be competitive. You better be talking to them all the time, and you better be talking to them one-on-one. Right. Yeah. That's the thing. Sending out a communication that's good for 10,000 people just isn't going to cut it anymore. So the intricacy of your technology has really, really, really got to come up, and it's got to be managing all aspects such as messaging, communication, badging, recognition, awarding, and being able to predict the long-term value of a customer is really, really important. Looking at how many of the awards they're taking up versus how much money they're actually spending to look at their net overall worthiness to your business is really, really important, right? And so those analytics are never been more important in understanding your customer and what their real value is, both in the short, medium, and long term to your business. And so what a loyalty, punch a 10 cards, get a free coffee. That's not loyalty anymore. And that term gets used, with the punch cards and all that kind of stuff. It's a much more robust proposition now.
And exactly, very well put, that it is more it's far more involved.
Yes. It's incredibly comprehensive. And the stuff that we've been working on in the last year, from marketing automation and communication automation, and we're doing a lot of global projects, right? And so now having to think about privacy laws forget about just the states, and now, how do we handle California versus Tennessee, where it's the wild, wild west there, but California is now adopting more and more stringent protection around opt-in and what they can use your data for. And then when you talk about Europe, it gets incredibly complex over there. So, the world's changing a lot in that regard. Consumers are getting a lot smarter, right? And they're wanting more visibility and what their data is being used for and how it's being used and having a say in that. And that puts an incredible pressure on the operator because there are legal liabilities to doing it wrong.
Oh, totally.
So you better partner with a company who knows what they're doing. And is going to make sure that they're able to protect your back, right? And that they're learning these laws and being very good at it. So
completely. And so what you're kind of even talking about here, even in regards to like what consumers are looking for and that shift, of course, a lot's changed, but are there any trends or changes that you're seeing as far as like maybe in consumer behavior that maybe like here to stay that's kind of happened over the past year?
Trying to think what I could talk about.
I know, right? No, because there's so many, because you already have like touched on so many, but it's obviously like this element of people are more readily available to, they're more readily likely to embrace, technology in different aspects and like the digital pay and all of that. I mean, I'm sure, right?
What's also interesting about that is even though customers may have been more willing to embrace it, certain companies weren't, right?
Yes, I know.
Certain industries weren't. Certain industries were taking their own sweet time, or they had such a robust customer base, they didn't have to, or they didn't think they had to, right? And I would even speak to the casino industry, and I'm going to call out my own industry quite a bit. We've been slow to embrace other technology. And so where other industries are moving a lot more rapid, now they're not as highly regulated. So that has a big factor in adoption. We're regulated. True. And we're regulated at a state level. So those regulations change from state to state on what we can do with our software and data and that kind of stuff. But, again, you've got all these other industries and we've got all this competition for entertainment dollars. And I tell you what, somebody releases a new phone, the casino industry's lost a weekend or lost that kind of stuff. So it's highly competitive with new restaurants, new clothes, new lifestyle options that are out there. And the casino industry has been playing catch up. And I think a lot of progressive companies in the gaming industry have used the downtime to try to really bolster their technology and their awareness of how to leverage these tools effectively together. In providing an experience for their customers, where before they were taking their customers for granted and just going, look, we're awash in cash, we're doing well, we don't need to figure this thing out. And they weren't worried about the decay of their database. And now you've got a whole new customer that has different expectations. Slot machine, video game kids growing up and looking at a slot machine isn't going to get it done. You better be adjusting all the things you're doing to deal with those new customers and the competitive lifestyle options that they've got available to them, right?
Yeah. I mean, you bring up so many great points in regards to that, because it's, and whether it is the gaming, whether it is hospitality, it's really interesting because they have been so reticent to accept change and embrace change. And it's now we've had to fast forward or at least play catch up, arguably so.
In some areas, you've got some people that are fast forwarding. I've got some very progressive customers like Hard Rock International that are just amazing, forward thinking people that are doing, you've got some customers where we're doing freshman algebra. And then you got some customers where we're doing PhD work, right?
Yeah, exactly. Makes sense.
And we've got some really great customers that make us think hard and make us really work hard. They're very sophisticated in what they're doing, and it's exciting work. It really is. And you got some that are just barely able to lace up their shoes, right? And they've got a long way to go if they're going to be competitive. And a lot of that means they've got to change out some of the teams that they've got to work with, right? Oh, totally. Sometimes you got to buy those skills from other industry and bring them in so that you can accelerate. Right. And again, that brings that job market thing back into play, where the makeup of your team is so hypercritical nowadays.
So critical, right?
And if you're missing skills, you're missing skills. They're hard to learn on your own in a vacuum.
Oh, so true. So true. So, oh my gosh, this has been, I could literally sit here and talk to you forever about this because I mean, I get it. And I definitely understand it from obviously like a bit of a different viewpoint, but just a couple questions before we wrap up. So what are some exciting projects that you and your teams might be working on that for those of us that are wanting to stay abreast as far as what you're working on, what can we look forward to in the future?
Oh, wow. Well, we're doing a global unification project. So we're launching our loyalty program for one company in 72 countries by the end of the year. So we're very busy.
That's amazing.
I never thought I'd have to worry about a restaurant in Moscow or down over in Tokyo or whatever, all coming together and managing cool, that. Though. So we're dealing with some pretty complex items there, but it's incredibly exciting. Mm-hmm. And it's bringing a lot of new capabilities into our product suite that we're relaunching back into our North American companies that are pretty exciting. But I think the other part is we've got the gaming industry, again, is having to go through a paradigm shift with all the online gaming, the sports betting, the social gaming, and yet all of those are now becoming primary business verticals for them. And we had done quite a bit of development over the years, and that has finally hit. So we've now integrated with companies like FanDuel and DraftKings and BetWorks and all of that kind of stuff, and all these non-traditional gaming companies who've now moved into the sunlight, and they've now become a primary gaming outlet for our customers that have been all land-based. So now they're embracing these as primary business verticals and our integrations in those areas, making sure that customers are recognized by their line of business, where they spend their money, where they spend their time, and understanding how to move them through a loyalty and tier system and recognition system based on what their primary line of business is, because you can't treat them all the same because they're not the same customers, and how they need to be recognized and rewarded is completely different. So managing that in one program has really been, that was 7 hours of my Saturday. So, those are really great challenges. And I think there are some companies that are facing them in the near term, but ultimately it's going to be an everybody kind of challenge, concern, and opportunity. Yeah. To me, I don't think there is a concern that doesn't have an opportunity tied with it, just depending on how you look at it. And you can mitigate the risk, but typically if you look at it the right way, you can exploit an opportunity with it. I've never seen a problem that doesn't have an opportunity as part of the solution. And I hopefully everybody's thinking about it that way.
And that's the best way, I think, to really look at it. So, Jon, by the way, this has been such a great conversation. I can't thank you enough because it's so cool to hear what you're working on and just understand a bit more of like the nuances on how all the different businesses are working together. But then this excitement for what is down the pipeline, because we are on the precipice of so much more change happening. And it's exciting to see what you're doing. So for those that have been tuning in, where can they find out more information or how to connect with you?
Well, I think obviously on your site, I hope. Yeah. And you can go to houseadvantage.com, right? Of course, is where our loyalty company is. It ties over to eTouch Menu, and then of course axiomcybersolutions.com. All of our different companies are out there and doing some pretty interesting things. So
I love it. I love it. Well, we'll be sure to have all of those links in the show notes. So Jon, thank you again so much for joining us today. And for everybody that was tuning in as well, I hope that you enjoyed today's conversation. We definitely did a deep dive into a lot of interesting topics. So really, really fun show and episode. So thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to stay tuned for future episodes. And as always, continue to say yes to travel.